it was such an easy target, and like it was just a weak joke as well. Like, and I think that was like.
What was the joke? You don't have to repeat it. If you don't want to.
I don't know if I could, but it was to do with
that one there. Yeah.
I'll tell you afterwards. I
just put up a deal.
It's actually bad.
And say hello. Yes. If someone says something horrible to Harvey, what does Harvey say?
Hello, you cunt.
Harvey.
That was on daytime TV.
Oh, it's such a good clip, man.
And
I love that.
I think to sort of round off our point of the podcast is you can laugh at that.
Yeah, of course you can.
And we're not laughing at a disabled kid. We're laughing at someone saying something sort of stupid on daytime TV. That's the joke.
But it's hilarious.
If he came into the room right now and said that, I probably wouldn't laugh.
I might laugh. Not because of that.
Would you, Shane?
Because it was just kind of out. No. So it's different, right? Because it's unexpected. Okay, so I expected him to come in and say that. That's different. But if he opened the door right now and came in and said that would be hilarious, right?
It would be scary.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what? Well, first of all, I'd be like, this is a mental coincidence.
I locked the door. I locked the door as well. How did he even get into the apartment?
Katie Price's son walking into this room in the middle of our podcast would be the top, sort of, and definitely top 3 most weird things in my life.
Hello and welcome back to the Fish and Chip podcast. I'm your host Fish.
And I'm your host Chips.
And on this episode of the podcast we have another special guest because we seem to have a lot of those these days.
Only way to plug our channel.
So exactly. By getting our friends by guilt tripping our friends to be in the podcast, you know. So Dave, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so you can take the gun away from my head now.
Okay. No, man. Sorry, the gun stays on the table. Like.
That's grand. That's grand.
Not till we finish the podcast.
Yeah.
My name's David, and I've known these two guys for a while now. We're both in the same town, and we go to college in Cork. So yeah,
together. Yeah, Dave's in my course as well.
Yeah,
film, screen, media, and UCC.
Yeah. So we're going to be jobless.
Pretty much. We're in it together though. So you know that's why he's going on the podcast.
It's why we're sort of churning out podcasts now, just in hope.
I'm just like throwing shit and seeing what sticks at this point, you know.
Yeah.
So since every single time we've gotten a special guest on, we've kind of had a special topic to talk about. A kind of interest that we all share is comedy, the genre of comedy. So like that could be like films, television, like just normal stand-up. Like we all kind of have a shared love of that type of content. So on this week of the podcast, we've decided to look at comedy, but to see how it kind of relates to free speech.
Yeah.
Because it's been a big topic in the news recently with the whole Count Dankula situation. So, Dave, do you want to describe the Count Dankula situation?
So I wasn't even aware of who he was before this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people
before the story. I actually first heard about the story from Jonathan Pye's video. You probably link it in the description just so people understand.
I'm going to link a couple of videos just to give a bit of context.
Yeah, basically, this long story short, he uploaded a video of him teaching his pug to do a Nazi salute, the Heil Hitler thing. And I didn't see the video. I think he repeatedly said "gas the Jews."
Yeah. So essentially, like what happened was his girlfriend was always talking about how cute her pug dog was, so he decided to like make the pug the most like abhorrent thing he could think of, which was a Nazi.
Yeah.
So as Dave said in the video, he taught him how to do a Nazi salute. It's just it's ridiculous.
It's funny now.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Funny now.
I've seen the video.
It's like. You can understand the controversy behind it, but he got sentenced or something for it as well.
Yeah,
there was a court case over it,
yeah.
And it's the most stupid thing. It's like it's one of those things that count as free speech. It's like you'd kind of understand if it was in Germany or that he was kind of doing it because they're still kind of sensitive about that issue.
Yeah.
But it's in Britain that it happened, and the fact that there's a court case revolved around it. Kind of counters the whole free speach thing. It's more of American.
That's why I think it relates to comedy because in comedy, Ricky Gervais in particular, who has always said this, the subject is not necessarily the target of the joke. So the subject of the joke was Nazis and something horrible that happened, the killing of Jewish people by Hitler, but Jewish people were not the target. He was not making fun of a Jewish person. He was making his dog it's stupid.
Well,
I don't.
Because it's making out Nazis to be stupid, and that's what as in their ideology. It's making fun of their ideology and their movement. It's not making fun of like the people that suffered in the war.
Yeah.
And that's always been the power of comedy. Like, the power of comedy has been to so that we can laugh in the face of like adversity.
Exactly.
That's what it was. As in, okay, so like my whole thing with the joke is, because we're gonna kind of go a bit back into the situation a bit more in a second, but like my whole thing with the joke is that, like, and people's reactions to it is that you might not find the joke funny, but you should still support someone's right to be able to make a joke.
Well, humor is so subjective anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And so is offense.
Yeah.
So they're two very subjective things, and you know, there's people are given sentences in jail where it's so concrete. It's like, did he kill him? Yes or no.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, you know, he didn't harm anyone, and also, if the judge finds it offensive, is that enough for him to be sentenced?
Yeah.
No,
you know,
not at all.
No, it's not.
So because humor and offense is such a subjective thing, it simply can't be policed, which is why freedom of speech is so important.
Exactly. So like, kind of why it's been back in the news recently is that after 2 years, like, basically the British justice system has like ruined this guy's life over a 2-year period.
Yeah.
Like, essentially made it so that he can never get a normal job ever again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because like, he's had to, like, in fairness, he had kind of a YouTube channel set up at the time of when it happened, but he went from like making like kind of videos randomly and having like no subscribers to like, I think he has like 300,000 subscribers on YouTube now.
Yeah.
Because that just shows how many people support the guy.
Yeah, I think ironically he has benefited from the whole thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think, well, he's obviously gained notoriety, and like he is a notable figure in the like fight for free speech because of this whole situation.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't want to be put in that place. Like, as in, that's the difference. As in, it's not like he was looking for that to happen to him. As he's kind of said, that he made the joke for a couple of friends and to like piss off his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And it's blown up, and like, it's almost impossible to actually, because like there are millions of videos uploaded to YouTube every week, so it's like you can never tell if a video like that is just going to go viral.
All he uploaded was a bit I mean, put bluntly, it was just edgy content he was putting up.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, that's the way people get big. A lot of comedians go that way. They talk about very controversial stuff and put it in a funny manner, and that's how they get big, because they have no fear to talk about these things.
Yeah.
And Ricky Gervais is a huge example of that. He would, like, he could bring up anything. I actually wouldn't be able to I wouldn't listen to him that much, but I know he's like, he's one of those people who he can be drunk on stage and he's still, you know, he just stresses comedy, like, you know.
Yeah, and like, you don't have to agree with a joke, an offensive joke.
Yeah.
You're like, freedom of speech means you can say things. Also, you have the right to say that's offensive.
Yeah.
But I don't think freedom of speech extends to putting someone in jail for someone.
Like, I mean, you can criticize. There's no problem with criticisms, like, about the thing. But but when you're trying to block that person off, you know, using bringing him to court over it, it's a bit. It's too extreme for something that's just what it bluntly would be just words. All it is words, and he didn't go. It wasn't like he was telling the dog to actually go gas the Jews, or, well, you know what I mean, like, he was
exactly.
He wasn't going like
that night when he went to bed. That night when he went to bed, the dog was like, right, I'm off now.
Like, that's the thing, exactly. Like, as in, so the whole point of the entire case, like, Count Dankula's, like, what's the guy's actual name again?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I can't actually remember the guy's name. I feel bad right now. But actually, look up his name, because, you know, we can't just keep calling him Count Dankula the entire time. But essentially, his whole...
Well, we can.
We can, you know. This is we're, you know, plugging his channel.
Keep
plugging our channel.
Marcus Meechan.
Marcus Meechan, that's
right,
it. He's a Scottish YouTuber. So his whole argument throughout the court case, and the argument a lot of people on his side, was that context matters.
Yeah.
Which is something that I really do agree with, because all of the people saying that context doesn't matter, anytime that they've said gas the Jews while reporting this situation, they're as bad as him.
Yeah. Because
if context doesn't matter, then their context doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
If his context doesn't matter, theirs doesn't. And that's what people don't seem to realize, is that because they're placing so much emphasis on all the words that someone says, that means that the same should be done to them.
Yeah.
But it's a slippery slope because
everything gets taken out of context when it comes to news and stuff. They always pull out the parts that they think will get the most attention, and I think that's look, it's what sells papers and stuff. But it's one of those things. The court shouldn't be taking that stuff into account.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be listening to the newspaper just because it put in. Because the fella, one line said he was going to gas the Jews or something, and they were like, "Oh, this is extreme." You have to go into detail and realize that the fact is he was just he's just a comedian, and that's just part of his edgy content.
Yeah, I think one thing that hasn't helped free speech is that it seems to have been latched onto by the right.
Yeah.
The left haven't really embraced it, and therefore, because so many people on the right support freedom of speech, it's become too associated with that and their political beliefs. Ricky Gervais is famously on the left. He's not on the right at all, but he campaigns. Well, not campaigns, but he supports free speech.
Yeah, he supports Count Dankula.
As I think every comedian should support free speech. I think this probably would bring us onto something I'm sure your thousands of subscribers will be itching for us to speak about, a TV show.
I don't think we've had 1,000 subscribers total yet. I mean, viewers.
Viewers.
Maybe not.
No,
one day.
Yeah.
Now that I'm on,
we're in like the mid 700s. So.
I'll bring my 11 subscribers over with me.
Oh man!
Actually, 2 of those are you.
Yeah. Also, the Fish and Chip podcast channel is
and one of those is my personal account.
Yeah.
So 4 of the 11 is in this room right now.
Man.
So I'm in no position to take the piss. But the creator of Father Ted and the IT Crowd, Graham Linehan, not famously, like it happened like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, well, it's been the last month.
He came out on Twitter criticizing Count Dankula directly, saying it was ridiculous. Count Dankula, I think, did he set up the GoFundMe page or did someone else?
He set it up.
He definitely has a GoFundMe page.
Okay, so I'll explain the GoFundMe because out of context you would think that this guy is trying to make money off of the situation. So what actually happened was, we should just describe what ended up happening with the court case. So instead, court case goes on for 2 years. Instead of giving Count Dankula prison time,
was it 2 years?
2 years, yeah, 2 years court case. Because they kept pushing the date back because the government was trying to
it wasn't a legit case.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was like the government kept trying to add on new charges. So, they tried to give him, at one point they were trying to give him 6 years in prison.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to add on all these different charges to the guy over this one fucking video. So what ends up happening is, because of, I think, a mixture of the case just being stupid and public pressure, Count Dankula doesn't get prison time, but he does get an £800 fine. I think more just to prove a point. But what it does do is, why a lot of people are supporting Count Dankula is because maybe a lot of these people don't actually find the joke funny. And even me, necessarily, I think it's a dumb joke. It is kind of funny in a sense, just because of how ridiculous it is. But it's not like one of the best jokes I've ever seen or anything. It's not really a standout joke. But why a lot of people are supporting him is that giving someone an €800 fine, you would think, or £800 fine, you would think it's not a big deal, but it is the antithesis to what free speech represents. And it sets a terrible precedence, because you think all of the support this guy's had in the media and stuff, that's why he hasn't got a prison sentence, or why it hasn't been harsher.
Well,
but what about the next person?
At the same time, he had to hire hire lawyers and stuff for it. I mean, 800 is only small in comparison to what he had to pay for the 2 years ban.
Of course, man, but it's not even that. It's because he doesn't care about the money because of something I'll tell you about in a second. Because I'm trying to give an overview of everything that's happening at the moment, just to give context to the situation. But but it's not even that, man. It's they wasted taxpayer money for this case that was pointless. And it's just where does it stop? It just seems like hubris on the part of the government to actually try to, they're trying to push their morals on everyone. You can't do that in that context. It doesn't work. But yeah, so essentially what ended up happening was, he set up the GoFundMe to hire basically a bunch of fancy lawyers to get the thing overturned. So he's hiring all of the experts in this field so that they can get this thing overturned. And the way that he's like said that he's going to be really transparent about all the funds and that he's going to show all the receipts for everything to make sure that like he's not taking money out of it. And he even showed that it's not about the £800 fine. He doesn't give a shit. Is like he basically donated that money to a children's hospital instead of which I think is a bit of a publicity stunt, maybe a tiny bit, but also it's a nice thing to do, and it shows that he doesn't care about the money. It's about what he sees is like an infringement on free speech, and that's why the whole Graham Lennon thing is so shocking, like to all of us, I think, because like I mean, you you got me onto watching the IT Crowd, and you absolutely like adore his shows, and so do I. And like he's been such like an inspiration to us with like stuff that we've tried to work on, and like
so how we came out against Count Dankula was like probably as disappointing as it was surprising, simply because like if you watch one episode of Father Ted, anyone could be offended by that. You know, I'm not. I'm sure nobody here is. But it can be seen as offensive.
Yeah.
You know, a priest. One of them smokes all the time. Doesn't really care particularly about religion. He just wants money, pretty much. The other one is an idiot. Probably doesn't believe in God.
Yeah.
I think he has more of an interest in aliens than God. And then the other one is the stereotypical sort of paedophile drunk.
Sure, it relies on a lot of stereotypes in Father Ted. Like, I mean, I love the show. I'm just saying that it's kind of like he's dissing his own.
Well,
content
so
like
we can sit here and defend Father Ted, and I think we can, but I don't think Graham Lenihan can defend Father Ted and then go after Count Dankula.
It's a bit hypocritical.
There's the episode where with the living room is just covered in Nazi, like, I don't want to say
memorabilia.
merch,
It's memorabilia, Well, it is Nazi memorabilia. Like it's
Yeah. And so like people use that as an argument against Graham Lenihan on Twitter, and he sort of came back and said, "Oh, it was a well thought out joke and it had its place." But it's like, it comes down to that thing again. It's like this is all so subjective.
Yeah, it's
you can't determine what's well thought out. I don't think Count Dankula probably spent weeks planning out the video.
No, it was just spur of the moment.
But like at the same time, humor is humor. I heard it. I was like, oh, it sounds like a bit of a stupid thing to put up.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I was like, oh, I wouldn't watch it. But the thing is it's actually, it's comedy nonetheless. He was going for, and it doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter how bad you think the comedy is. It's still just comedy nonetheless.
Because like comedy is the one thing that transcends all forms of media, like films, television memes, like anything can be comedy.
Yeah,
and it's why it's so important, because and it's also why comedy is linked to freedom of speech. I don't know.
No, I agree. Like,
I think we probably said most. Like,
I think
probably repeat ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's like the thing about, just one to add another thing to the Graham Lenihan situation. Like, it's not like it's been something that he just kind of said out of the blue. It's been like something that's been going on for weeks and weeks, where like Graham Lenihan's essentially been like harassing this guy.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me. Also, when you think about the context of when Father Ted came out, because the IT Crowd isn't really that offensive. It's got offensive jokes in it, but it's not really. No. But like, think of the context of Father Ted, right? It came out in the 90s in Ireland.
Yeah.
Which was like when Catholicism was still gripping the country. Like, isn't it? Was still like a massive part of. It is still a part of Ireland, but not as much as it was back then.
UK show, is it not?
It was it made on the UK? But
it was probably originally on Channel 4.
I think it was originally on Channel 4 because it was turned down by RT. But then you got to think it's big because of Ireland. Like, it's not big because of the UK. It's an Irish TV show, written by an Irishman. Like, just because it's made on a
Irish
UK channel.
And everything.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm just saying it was.
No, but like, so my point though is that show probably got so much, because I wasn't obviously born back then, but that show probably got so much backlash, like publicly back then, and it was called like offensive and abhorrent and everything. So Graham Lenihan, more than anyone else, should understand what it feels like to be called like all these things.
Yeah.
And he just, but instead he's like, Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know
I
why he's doing it, though.
You shouldn't be crucified for putting up lazy content. That's basically the only thing his argument is.
Yeah.
His argument is just because he was he didn't put much thought into it. He just lazily uploaded something.
Yeah.
It was just lazy comedy. But you still shouldn't be crucified for lazy comedy. Nonetheless, it's still comedy and it's still free speech.
Yeah, I think the issue with the original Count Dankula video was probably initially raised by people in the comments on YouTube, and then something that probably moved on to Twitter. That didn't exist back in the 90s with Father Ted, and you know that you can guarantee that if Father Ted came out when Twitter existed, it would have far more complaints.
Oh yeah, more than likely so. But then you also have to kind of think that like the internet is supposed to be like an era of like enlightenment.
Yeah.
It's we're supposed to be like an enlightened generation, but what seems to be happening instead is that like recently, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, I can see like we just seem to be tearing each other apart, and this is just another symptom of that. Like,
yeah,
like sure, I was watching Jimmy Carr did a roast of Rob Lowe that, and he did one of the SNL actors was there, and he did a roast of him, and his father was it was one of the firemen for 9/11, and he made a joke. I can't remember the joke exactly, but it was something like, oh, you know, I'd say your dad's happy he died in the fire, so he didn't get to see how shit your walk is, or something like that.
Yeah.
I forget what exactly it was, but I saw something on Twitter, like basically bitching about how that it was too far the comedy went and stuff. It's like, you know, but and that, you know, everyone should be trying to remove his content from the thing. I mean, there's other things, like not necessarily court cases. People are trying to remove content from remove comedy from YouTube and trying to censor it. It's not just, I mean, like Count Dankula is an extreme case, but there's a lot of things where you put up something comedic and it's just in good humor, and they just censor it, try to remove it. You get monetized and all this stuff, and that's a big issue too. I mean, like Count Dankula's is an extreme case. You know, goes to court, but it's one of those things where censorship is going all over the place.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't, I mean, like, it should go into different categories, but you shouldn't be crucified just for putting up comedy.
Yeah,
like.
Well, you should always be allowed to criticize whoever you want, but it's when it gets to the stage it's gotten with Count Dankula that, like, you know that things are getting out of hand. Like.
Yeah, and, like, just to bring it on to, like, a different YouTuber as well, freedom of speech doesn't mean that PewDiePie can say the N-word.
Yeah.
You know, we have the right to say, you know, you said you could say to me, "Fuck you, David."
Yeah.
And me and Jason have the right to say, "Well, why did you say that?"
Why did you say? Yeah, you criticize it, but I don't know. Like, I mean, it's one of those things where I think that there should be a place that, you know, these stuff should be allowed on. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like, YouTube can, I guess at the same time, can only allow so much content.
Yeah.
You know, like, and advertisements, there's a complication and stuff, but there's, sure, even you say PewDiePie with the M-word, one that none of us really would like, I assume, would be like Logan Paul and the fucking Suicide Forest type thing. And that's like,
yeah, but that was like,
that's not speech though. That's an act.
It's action. Like,
so I know, I was thinking there, I was like, oh wait, actually,
like it was also like quite illegal what he did too.
Yeah, like, it was illegal. Actually, that's different. If you're putting up something violent, that's different. Actually, but I'm still glad I brought it up. It's one of those things where you have to know the limits.
Yeah.
I mean, words are just words, but actions like Logan Paul is very different.
Yeah, and YouTube are allowed to have their own policies.
Yeah.
They would be within their right to take down the Count Dankula Nazi video.
Of course. I'm pretty sure it is off YouTube. I'm almost positive.
I haven't seen it, so probably
it probably is.
I've seen it before, but I don't think I saw it on YouTube.
Things get re-uploaded by other people all the time.
Yeah, and just because that's their policy and they took it down doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means they have the right to decide what goes on their website and what doesn't.
Well, like, just because, like, so free speech is important, we've been talking about that, but just like a point not against free speech, but just against like the idea of like just because there's free speech doesn't mean you need to give everyone a platform.
Yeah,
like, obviously, as in, like, so, like, if YouTube don't want to give a platform to people like Count Dankula or whoever, even though he has a YouTube channel, they are within their rights of doing that. Like, you know, like, as long as they are like staying true to their terms of service and stuff and their policy, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just with stuff like the Logan Paul thing where that was number one on trending for like 2 days or whatever.
Well, yeah. So that the whole Logan Paul thing probably brought up a massive sort of ambiguity in their policy.
Yeah.
What's allowed and what isn't.
Well, it's because it just seems like for them sometimes it's like rules for some and not for others, like, you know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the problem sometimes with YouTube, in a sense that like they kind of do favor some like people over others, like because Logan Paul is so marketable.
Yeah.
Because you know he's like 20-year-old guy, good looking dude, like used to be on Disney Channel, has like a young fan base.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, good looking dude in terms of like what his fans want from him, like.
Sure, they weren't happy with PewDiePie, so they were trying to market someone else, kind of a thing. And Logan Paul seemed to be at the time is the second best thing.
Yeah, exactly. It was because PewDiePie's content went from being like, cause we're kind of getting into like a wider discussion about YouTube now a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Like PewDiePie's content used to be the golden boy of YouTube because he used to do just normal gaming content. Like gaming was like huge at the time. Then his content used to like start to get a lot edgier, and he started talking about actual issues.
Yeah.
And that's when YouTube turned on him a bit, like.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I think that the whole thing with that just like. Because we're not going to talk about this for too long.
Yeah,
just a small side note. Like, what YouTube seems to want from their creators is for them not to engage with reality. Because reality can cause controversy and can split opinions. Whereas if you're just making dumb videos, they're kind of like happy enough with that.
Yeah. Like I think as soon as I mentioned Philip DeFranco, I think that probably means this podcast will be about 3 hours knowing you. So I don't think we'll go down that road.
No, we won't.
I'm definitely going to ask you about that after though.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I want to leave.
Yeah.
Like, because kind of since this is like more of a comedy or a comedy about podcasts, a podcast about comedies.
Yeah.
Like I think we're gonna because we've had our serious conversation, so let's have our kind of less serious, kind of enjoyable conversation. So I'm gonna ask you kind of about your favorite comedies, kind of series or movies. So what would you say for you is like the pinnacle of comedy television? That you've seen.
I would say The In-Betweeners.
That's your favorite.
I think it is.
It's a good one, actually.
I think that it was always great, and I think it was highlighted how good it was when the USA In-Betweeners came out.
Oh God, man!
Oh my God! Did you ever see comparison
Busters?
between the two?
Yeah, Dave shared me the video before. I think we've talked about it before. I'm pretty sure. That because it's just like they tried to copy British comedy, and it's just that. As you've pointed out to me a lot of times, British comedy just does not mix with American comedy at all.
Yeah.
Like, they're completely different styles.
And like, you know, the humor and even the language they use in the In-Betweeners, that can be seen as offensive. But what you have to say to yourself is it's the language that is used throughout the UK and Ireland by 16 to 20-year-olds. You know,
it's realistic, as in it's like it may be a bit hard for some people to hear, but that's how people talk.
Yeah.
As in it's like like not gritty, but like it is like the pinnacle of like realistic like dialogue between teenagers.
Yeah.
Is the In-Betweeners, I would say.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Which I think is why it like was so like popular with so many people of our generation, because I feel like even though we're not British because we're Irish, like, but we are quite like we're countries that are quite connected, like in terms of like culture.
Well, we listen to a lot of British stuff. We kind of we absorb a lot of British humor, and like I mean that's one thing that like we're so close to British, we get even their TV like.
Yeah, exactly. I think that in a lot of ways though we do share their humor in terms of like the self-deprecation, like deprecation.
Yeah.
Whereas as you kind of pointed out, comedies like so with American comedies, it's like in America you're told you can be whatever you want.
Yeah. So like every kid in America is told that they might not, but they can be the next president, whereas everyone in the UK is told you're not going to be the prime minister. It's just not going to happen.
You barely ever hear a crossword in an American comedy.
Not really.
Well, that might be reflective of the network itself.
The networks is kind of a thing with that. Yeah, that's true too. I know. Yeah, I guess we're a bit more free with that. Like here, like
I think because I think in Ireland and in England, swear words are used comedically.
Yeah.
They seem to just be thrown in anywhere in America. They'll say it randomly where they feel like it.
Yeah.
I think I watched last night. I watched an episode of The In-Betweeners, the one where they bunk off.
Oh yeah.
And it's the scene where Simon pretends to be his mom on the phone to the school, saying that he's gonna ring into he rings into the school saying that Simon and Will are sick today, they can't make it in.
Yeah.
And he just makes complete balls of it.
Yeah.
And puts on the phone, and then Will goes, "Well, that was fucking dreadful," and that's such a well placed F word.
Yeah.
It's just I think it does it's my point is have you seen 22 Jump Street?
20. Yeah, I've seen 22.
Yeah.
Wait,
you know
the
the
sequel. 22, 21.
Yeah,
21 Jump
22.
Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, 22 Jump Street. Yeah.
You'll see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
You know the bit where Ice Cube realizes that
That Jonah Hill's
Jonah
character.
Hill is having sex with his daughter.
Yeah.
And then Channing Tatum runs around the entire place going like, "You fucked the captain's daughter."
Yeah.
And he just repeats it about he repeats the F word 20, 30 times. And it just had no purpose. It lost its humour after about two
or three uses.
uses of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Whereas
we're more British, they seem to be more clever with where they use crosswords.
Yeah.
Like what you
More
call it,
selective.
bus wankers.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. You know,
That's the one that always
wankers
comes to my mind because like kind of like talking about the In-Betweeners and like the difference between the American one and stuff because there's a good video about that actually.
Yeah, sure. What's it?
Yeah.
Bus wanker is what they
Use-
use in the British version. American version is like
Bus turd.
Bus turd,
That's
yeah.
it, yeah. Because they didn't understand that the comedy of that situation came from the word wanker, like,
yeah.
you know, and also just the situation in general, obviously. But that's like that was the buzzword in that.
Even just the
whole thing.
comedic timing in that
Yeah.
scene is off.
It is.
The way in the English version, the way Jay is so slouched in his seat, everyone is, but then he slowly rises up before everyone else, and he goes, "Fucking hell, you two shit yourselves," and it's just so perfect. I think I don't think the US In-Betweeners is a reflection of US comedy and how funny
No.
they can be.
Like-
No,
I
of
think it
course
was
not.
they just had a bad group of people.
Oh yeah, like
you
I
know.
mean, you could compare what you call it, The Office. That's
Yeah.
probably the best one to compare.
Oh, definitely.
I didn't actually. I haven't really watched much of UK. I kind of seen clips and stuff. But the overall consensus for people would be that that the US version is better.
Yeah,
Like I mean, there's a lot less in the UK version. They have a lot less episodes, so there's not that much to compare between the two because you have a lot more time with the US version to fill out these fill out, to go in
develop
depth
characters,
with characters
yeah.
and stuff,
Yeah.
and do a lot more stuff. But like the thing is it's when the worst thing is when US comedies try to copy the UK counterpart.
Yeah, they have to adapt
The US
properly.
started off copying the UK a fair bit,
Yeah.
and then they expanded and realized that they should just go off and do their own thing. And that's one of those. That's the problem with. That's the problem with trying to remake a UK thing because they automatically think they have to try and copy it as close as possible. Sure, what you call it, IT Crowd.
Yeah.
They tried to they brought a pilot for the US version. They brought Moss back. They brought the same actor for Moss, but they just brought the characters had no connection.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things. They had a replacement for everyone else, and it was like it just didn't work with the humor that was in the IT Crowd. They have to try and make it their own and kind of relate it to the American lifestyle because you kind of have to relate it to the location, the humor,
Yeah. I think as well, I said about the US In-Betweeners, it might be a reflection of like, the comedic talent of people who are just working on it. The person who replaced Chris O'Dowd on the US IT Crowd is Jeff from Community.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And he's great in Community.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that person isn't talented or isn't funny.
But the script was written for UK viewers.
Yeah.
The script was because they basically copied the scripts identically and just changed a few words to American phrases. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that doesn't work directly because Americans and British people have different kind of humor that they put up. I mean, at the same time, we all find American shows funny. It's just you have to stick to one category. You can't just you have to redo the script completely and actually make it into American.
Yeah, I think British teenage life and like Irish teenage life is so different to American teenage life that it didn't transfer over. Whereas with The Office, everyone understands what it's like to work in just a boring job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that really resonated, and it was relatable for the US audience. All they had to do was just tweak some certain things. For example, Michael Scott. If you compare Michael Scott to David Brent, like on the surface they look similar, but Michael Scott is a much better person than David Brent is. I would say
David Brent is a bit more he's a bit more out there.
He's more out there. He's far less redeeming personality qualities. Yeah.
Did you see the bit where he met where Michael Scott?
And they met each other. Yeah.
They met each other. It was like before just at the start of the episode, and it was just David Brent was just making an Asian joke, and it was like, oh, these are completely different characters.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were making they had like teases for David Brent to take over The Office when Michael Scott was leaving and stuff like.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of character is Michael Scott then in terms of like when you compare him to David Brent? Like why they?
I think the American audience need
a relatable.
They need a relatable. They need positivity.
Yeah.
So many bad things. Like don't get me wrong. Bad things happen to Michael Scott, but in the end, he leaves in season 7. He works out. He marries Holly. I think it was Holly.
I have no idea.
Holly.
Yeah, it was Holly. Yeah, it was.
And then he comes back from the last episode. And he has 2 kids, and he's all happy. Whereas David Brent, there's a lot of uncertainty about it. 15 years later, they make a film which shouldn't have been made, really.
Yeah.
And he's still a loser, basically.
Yeah, he lost his job or something at the end of the show.
So I think like American people do like the UK Office. Like it's that's fine.
It's just it does a lot less a UK version.
I think if a character like David Brent was on in America and it lasted 9 years, Americans would soon get tired of it.
Yeah.
Because they look at successful people in film and TV, and they think that can happen to me. It's like the whole president analogy, and then they might look at David Brent and think, God, like that's worrying.
I think that kind of the show that maybe breaks the mold with that a bit, like just because you just kind of piqued my interest with something there, is maybe It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Because all of the people in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia have no redeeming qualities. They're all terrible people. But what I will say though, that kind of I agree with your point actually for the most part, is that they're kind of caricatures of real people.
Yeah.
So you almost are like, oh, people like this couldn't exist, because they always get into like the wackiest situations, as in like they get into situations somehow where they convince a priest to drop out of the priesthood, and then like they get him to become a drug mule for them, and then he becomes a homeless drug addict that does sex favors to like people to get drugs. Okay. And but they play that for comedy. But it's like a situation like that is so mental that it's like it almost doesn't compute as real life.
Extreme, but at the same time, you could say that about IT Crowd as well.
Oh yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying is in like this is why I say that like a show like that can work in America for American audiences, because it's not like you relate with those characters necessarily.
It's not. It's not a common type of show that America has. Like I actually forgot about Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but I could. Nothing else would actually pop to my mind now.
No, not really. Maybe Shameless, but like the Shameless started out as a UK show and then
it
became
became
American.
Shameless the UK first.
That because but I'm pretty sure the American. I don't know if the American version of that is good or not. Because I've never seen Shameless.
I've never seen either.
I think the British public find comfort in seeing
people worse than
people worse off than the loser.
Yeah.
Peep Show, for example.
But British people and Irish people can find it easier to make fun of themselves a bit more. I mean, it's like one of those things that's like, you know, like we kind of get more giggles out of comedy that kind of, you know,
deprecates. Yeah. Peep Show is definitely like that anyway. I can't even watch
Peep Show blows The Office out of the water in terms of cringe.
Oh my god. We tried to watch the first... So I've seen the first 5 seasons of it, but I saw it a long time ago when I think that I was almost like more able to deal with cringe comedy because I'm more of an adult now. When I see someone that's that much of a loser, it actually like hurts me
cringe
a tiny bit. Like it
does. I have to pause. Like some shows, if there's too much, I just can't watch anymore. It was kind of like that for Always Sunny. It was just too cringy for me. But I do a bit. If I'd mute the TV sometimes if I think it's too cringy, or if I've seen that episode before and I think this part's just too cringy for me, I'd actually skip forward every so often because I'm like, for fuck's sake, I just can't deal with it.
Yeah.
Whereas you're like the opposite side of the spectrum then because you like love cringe, Dave. Like,
I think cringe is just art. It's just it's an art. Like Peep Show is art.
Yeah,
I
agree with that.
I nearly call up in a ball when I see something that makes me cringe.
Yeah,
I actually shiver. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I don't not do that. I guess I just enjoy it. I like seeing people worse off than me.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm kind of like that too. In fairness, a bit like,
and it doesn't worry me at all that I would, you know, that could happen to me. That I could.
Yeah.
I don't know what's an example of an embarrassing thing that happens in Peep Show. Basically, on my wedding day, I don't want to get married. Like, you know, it's and I just
the phone call in like the second episode. When he says, I love you, and if you can't deal with it, then fuck off.
Yeah. It's just cringe basically. But it's comedic cringe.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not. I get cringed out at certain things, and I can't watch it. But I think the thing with cringe and comedy is I'm always sort of certain that there will be a punchline and there will be a relief of cringe.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. It's like cringe for the sake of cringe is not necessarily great, but then like cringe when it's done the right way, like Peep Show, as you said. Because like you, I don't know, did you make a video about that, or did you were thinking about making a video about cringe comedy, or?
I've written a video essay about cringe.
Yeah.
Mainly involving Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant.
You don't need to obviously don't give away the video, like, but
because of all my 11 subscribers, they don't want to find out any spoilers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, one of them is sitting right next to you. Another one is sitting right next to you. Together, we're another subscriber.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. What I'll do is I'll put all the spoilers about 30 seconds into my video because nobody watches past that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. You know?
And
that's why you have to plug your merch in the first 10 seconds. Like,
exactly,
otherwise, you know.
Exactly. Like, plug that merch.
Man, who's going to buy your pencil toppers, you know? I mean, come on. You got to get that sweet cheddar change, like, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of... Because I've never been a fan of a cringe in comedy. I don't know, it's just like for me, it's like, it almost like kills me a tiny bit inside.
I think it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it does.
You know, it works off each other. And like Peep Show isn't all cringe.
No, it's not.
And neither is The Office. I think it's just... I think it's just acts as a worst case scenario for people.
Yeah.
And
David Mitchell is a very funny actor.
Yeah,
he like I see some of his comedy stuff as well. Like, but he's a very funny personality. And the fellow that's on with it as well, what's it, David Webb or something?
Robert Webb
or something. He's pretty funny as well. I've seen him in a few things. I forget where I've seen him, but I'd watch.
He was a lecturer in Fresh Meat. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen
Fresh Meat.
Everyone's telling me to watch it.
I've seen some of Fresh Meat. I haven't seen a lot. It's like one of those things when if I had E4 on at home, I might.
Yeah.
Isn't Jack Whitehall's in that, isn't he too?
In Fresh Meat, yeah, he is.
Yeah. Is one of the guys from the In-Betweeners in that too?
Simon from the In-Betweeners.
I remember.
He basically plays the exact same character.
Oh, does he?
Like, he plays the exact same character.
Oh my god, I've seen
Jack Whitehall plays Jack Whitehall.
Yeah, he always plays Jack Whitehall.
Jesus Christ, I've seen all of Fresh Meat. I don't know what I'm talking about. I looked it up.
He watches so many comedy series.
I was like, wait, I got sick of it towards the end though.
Yeah,
I was like, it was kind of like, it was really funny for a while, and then it was like, I felt like the actor who plays Simon, he was just in Betweeners, who's in this as well. He just was too like Simon.
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like he was playing the same character. Just that this character actually had sex.
yeah.
Does Simon have sex in between the movies?
In the movies, but in the TV shows,
he doesn't. Does he? He has a girlfriend. I can't remember.
Yeah, no,
there's a very just sort of memorable episode.
Yeah, with when your one sister comes in. And,
yeah. That's a great episode.
Why would it work?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about TV shows. So before we kind of wrap up, there's kind of one more facet of comedy which we haven't really talked about, which I think is like it is where comedy started essentially, and it's probably maybe the type of comedy that I'm most into actually, which would be like stand-up comedy.
Okay.
So who would be your favorite stand-up comedian? All time, or even just like one that stands out to you in this moment, like. Because we watched
in relation to what we're speaking about, I guess Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, we watched Humanity recently. Actually, his Netflix special.
Yeah,
it was really good.
It was good. Yeah.
You kind of are more of the opinion that he used to be better, though, aren't you?
Yeah, I think his talent is sort of acting and writing. Mm-hmm. He's actually a brilliant actor.
He is. I think he's a quite.
He's great.
I was never a fan of his acting ability. I think he's a great writer.
Have you seen Extras?
Extras, I actually haven't seen that. Actually, I've been meaning to watch.
Your opinion might change of his acting ability. Then,
oh yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah,
he basically plays himself, but there is the last episode. He just plays an absolute blinder, and it's so sad.
So there's like 2 movies he brought out that I thought was really good writing ability, but acting ability less would be like Ghost Town.
Yeah,
his acting ability wasn't great in it, but it was good writing. And Invention of Lying. That was like, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, he probably shouldn't have starred in that.
Yeah.
I think he wasn't actually the best actor. I just felt it didn't. He just didn't suit that role, and it just made me think less of him as an actor.
I don't think his acting ability extends beyond a middle-aged man from Reading in England.
Yeah, that's true. It's just they're 2 similar roles as well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. He's played the same character. I guess his most different character would be David Brent.
Yeah.
Since then, he's just been Ricky Gervais. Mm-hmm. But I think what makes him a good actor is he does write the role for himself, and then that allows him to, because if he's playing Ricky Gervais, I'm sure he's cried in his life.
Oh yeah,
he knows what it's like to cry as that character. Mm-hmm. If he's playing, an American drug dealer or something, he doesn't know what that's like. Mm-hmm. So I think.
Yeah, that's true too. You know, he's kind of his script is kind of revolving around him, like fitting him into the equation, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like one of those things where it's like he feels he's the one who's experienced these things in the sort of time. Oh, it comes from his head. He thinks he's the one who can express it the best. But I just think with some show, I think his it just shows in what I've seen from him. His writing ability is way better than his acting. And sure, that goes on with the fact that people prefer the US office to the UK. It was like he did a lot of writing for US office.
Yeah,
I know he wrote a few. He wrote for a few episodes, but he's just a better. I just think he stands out as a better writer.
Yeah, I think he's raised an important point before about offense. And he spoke about it in relation to do you remember James Corden? Shortly after the Harvey Weinstein sort of controversy came to the surface, and James Corden made a load of just stupid jokes at some awards ceremony. Just like they just weren't funny. Mm-hmm. And I think Ricky Gervais made the point: don't be offensive to be offensive.
Yeah.
Because he says, if you think of something funny, you have to say it, win, lose, or draw. I think that's the quote.
Yeah, that's the quote. Yeah.
And I think as soon as you begin to think of something offensive, then you lose the sort of direction of the joke.
Yeah.
Think of the funny thing. If it is offensive, say it, because otherwise, because my point is, right. I've said my point so many times, but the joke has to be well thought out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm sure James Corden meant no harm in what he was saying.
Don't depend on your joke being offensive. If it turns out to be offensive, that's kind of that's grand. It's just one of those things where it's like, when you're going to write a joke, it's like, don't base your thought on something offensive. Base it just on a funny situation.
Yeah.
And if it was an offensive funny situation, then that's okay. Like
it's really important that you stand by your joke as well, because if you don't stand by your joke and if you apologize for it, that's an admission that it was the wrong thing to say and that you shouldn't have said it. James Corden obviously had. I'm sure he was forced to come out.
I apologize.
But I think people like Ricky Gervais could never be forced to come out and apologize for something
it
that's been
depends on
said.
your contracts as well. Sometimes
Well, it's about the networks and stuff. I think that's kind of what happened to just kind of like talking about the whole offensive thing. I think that's why Frankie Boyle kind of lost his mojo a bit. So, like, just if I was going to say who my favorite stand-up comedian at the moment is Dave Chappelle, because his 2 Netflix specials were unbelievable. They're 2 of the best specials I've ever seen. And also because he was gone for so long and he just came back so strong. Like, I've never seen a comeback that good.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally as big a star as he was back in the day, and it only took 6 months to get there again. Like, but Frankie Boyle would have probably been my like go-to guy back in the day. Like stuff like Mock the Week, when he was on QI, he was always like a really standout person on that too. Mock the Week was like his thing. Like, he was like no one else is that good, is as good at that type of comedy as in that like type of
he's very good on the spot.
He is. Yeah, exactly. Well, he's the type of guy that can just maybe his stand-up routines aren't as good, but his on the spot like jokes are
he is a quick whip.
Yeah, he's a quippy comedian. Like I think that what ended up happening to him is that he became known for saying offensive things, but he was always known for saying offensive smart things, as in like they were well thought out jokes, and like they were funny, but they were also offensive, but they were funny before they were offensive.
Well, he created a brand on being offensive.
Exactly, yeah. So, but what ended up happening was the whole thing with Jordan, Katie Price's son, where he basically called her son, who's like has like it was just like that whole situation like pretty much destroyed Frankie Boyle's career.
Have you seen that video on This Morning?
Of him, of who?
The Katie Price's son.
Oh yeah, I've seen
and
it.
Where I think Holly Willoughby says, "And what do you say to the people who bully you?" He just goes, "Hello, you cunts."
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
have you?
I've seen it.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's great.
I haven't actually.
It's fantastic. I don't know. It's just like, because I loved Frankie Boyle so much as a comedian. Like, he was so fucking hilarious. But then after that happened, it's not like I lost respect for him, because I was like, okay, you can make mistakes. But then it was a symptom of like the downfall of him as a comedian, because he was chasing offensiveness over like being funny.
My phone just died.
Oh, did you turn on Snapchat at like 70% again?
No. Will you search the Hello You Cunts into YouTube there, Shane?
Oh man, it's a good clip.
I want to record your reaction to it.
All right, go ahead. It's a good clip, man. But I don't know. It was such an easy target, and like it was just a weak joke as well. Like, and I think that was like.
What was the joke? You don't have to repeat it if you don't want
to. I don't know if I could, but it was to do with
that one there. Yeah.
I'll tell you afterwards. I
just put up a video.
It's actually bad.
You say hello. Yes. If someone says something horrible to Harvey, what does Harvey say?
Hello, you cunt.
Harvey.
That was on daytime TV.
Oh, it's such a good clip, man.
And
I love that.
I think to sort of round off our point of the podcast is you can laugh at that.
Yeah, of course you can.
And we're not laughing at a disabled kid. We're laughing at someone saying something sort of stupid on daytime TV. That's the joke.
Well, it's hilarious.
If he came into the room right now and said that, I probably wouldn't laugh.
I might laugh. Not because of that.
Would you, Shane?
Because it was just kind of out of... No, so it's different, right? Because it's unexpected, okay?
Yeah.
So I expected him to come in and say that's different. But if he opened the door right now and came in and said that would be hilarious, right?
It would be scary.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what? Well, first of all, I'd be like, this is a mental coincidence.
I locked the door. I locked the door as well. How did he even get into the apartment?
Katie Price's son walking into this room in the middle of our podcast would be the top, sort of, and definitely top 3 most weird things in my life.
Yeah. I mean, like, we've only 20 subscribers. How did you track us down?
Exactly, yeah.
He was like, as soon as you reached the 23rd subscriber, I was like, you just, I knew you were, like,
He was the 23rd.
Man, what they say on YouTube, the 23rd subscriber, that's the sweet spot, that's when you know you've made it, like.
The only comment in this video will just be, hello, you cunts. And it'll be from me.
I'm looking forward to it. We don't get many comments though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had 2. One of them was me.
And the other one was a guy going like everything that Shane said was stupid and I hate him.
Yeah.
That was essentially the comment. It was like that was a randomer as well. That wasn't someone we know. Like it was just some random.
It was just a random comment.
It was great. And then Shane was like, "Oh, should I reply?" And Shane wanted to like give this like not offensive reply, but he wanted to like tell the guy to shut the fuck up. And I was like, "Just leave it off. It's fine." It's great. Like
Yeah, like that's one thing that I found.
Track him down.
One thing that I found about especially like posting my videos onto
yeah.
Reddit.
Yeah,
I won't go into it, but it's just not worth replying to haters.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. Because you'll just attract more haters, and then the people who like your content aren't interested enough to support you.
But it was kind of hilarious, so
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry, Dave. I support what you said. It was pretty funny. So
Thank you.
It was pretty hilarious, like
Thanks.
But, yeah. So I think we're gonna wrap up there. So Dave, do you want to, before we finish up, do you want to plug your channel?
Well, I'm plugging it to myself at the moment because I mean, who's gonna watch to the end? Well, like
I'll make sure they do. It's gonna be the first line of the description.
Yeah.
Nice one.
You know? So
Okay. Well, I'm actually editing this.
You are editing this. Yeah.
Well, if you allow me to.
No, I'm allowing you to.
Right. Okay.
So.
Fine.
I have no problem which one of you do it.
So basically, I've got a channel called Movie Sketch, and I do some sort of comedy sketches with Jason and some other lads from our course, and that's pretty much it.
It's a good watch. We'll put it in the top line of the description.
Movie Sketch.
Exactly. Yeah. So
guys, prioritize yourself on this channel. So leave a like on the video, comment in the section below, and subscribe. Subscribe to this channel, Fish and Chips. Thank you and goodbye.